Welcome back to my channel. This is part 5 of the climate series. In part 1 we talked about the difference between weather and climate and how weather plays an important role in determining the geography, the landscape of an area, and how lot of conditions play into determining that weather. In part 2 we talked the same thing but limited to the Indian context. In part 3 we talked about monsoons briefly, and in part 4 we went into a deep analysis of the causes that leads to the monsoonal showers or monsoonal rainfall in India. In part 5 we are talking basically about the seasons. So the first point is seasons mostly occur in the interiors and not in the coastal areas. So this is a fairly simple point because the coastal areas have the moderating influence of the sea, so they have a weather condition or a climate that is determined by the sea, and the extreme coldness or the extreme hotness is usually not a feature of these coastal areas, but the interiors definitely face enough extremities in terms of weather condition. So the second point is we basically broadly have 4 seasons, and as discussed in the last part, monsoon plays a very important role in determining or phasing out different seasons and bringing about 4 distinct seasons. So the first season that we'd be talking about is the cold weather season, which we also know as winter. So just to bring it out that I am not going into details about how much centimeter of rainfall we would be getting, or the exact temperature of a place. Those are something which you have to memorize, so I'm trying to avoid that and just focus on the conceptual part. Okay, so the cold weather season or winter, over here the temperature decreases from south to north. So obviously, as you know, the northern part of the country has extreme cold conditions unlike the peninsular or the southern part. So yeah, temperature decreases from south to north, and the coldest areas are basically in the north. The second point is northeast trade winds prevail. So as we discussed in the last part, only during the monsoonal rain or the rainy season do the wind systems reverse, and we get rainfall from the southeast trade winds in the form of southwest monsoons. But during winter or summer or the normal weather conditions, we basically have the northeast trade winds prevailing in our part of the continent. The third point is in the winter season, the wind basically blows from the land to sea. So you should always remember that wind either blows from sea to land or land to sea. When it blows from land to sea, it basically brings about dryness, because land there is no moisture, and it just goes to the sea, so the place becomes more dry. But when the reversal happens, that is the wind blows from sea to land, usually it carries lot of moisture from the sea, and this leads to lot of rainfall. So yeah, in winter temperature decreases from south to north, northeast trade winds prevail, land to sea breeze we can see, which leads to dryness and dry wind. But in Tamil Nadu, the reversal thing happens, where the wind blows basically from the sea to land. That is why parts of Tamil Nadu do receive rainfall from the moisture laden sea winds. Then feeble high pressure in north. So as we know, whenever there is too much sunlight or too much sun rays in that area, the air basically expands, creating a low pressure. But here we are seeing in winter there is high pressure, because the rays of the sun are little bit more inclined and not as direct as in summer. So there is a high pressure belt, and if there is a high pressure belt, we know there would be dry type of season and there would not be rainfall. Still, sometimes every year, not actually sometimes, almost every time we hear about rainfall in the western and the northwestern part of the country during this time, which is also known as the winter rainfall or Mahavat. So where does this originate then? So this basically originates from Western Asia. I'll show you how. So this part basically gets a little bit rainfall. So the rainfall starts from Western Asia or the Mediterranean Sea. This is the Mediterranean Sea, and India gets its western disturbances from this place. This is the flow of the wind, and this rainfall is very important for India because this helps in the growing of the rabi crops, and which is very essential for our agriculture and economy both. The peninsular region basically has a moderate type of climate because the dynamics in the north are not to be seen in the southern part. I hope winter season is clear. Next, coming to the summer season. So this is known as the hot weather season. So northward movement of sun and global heat belt shifts to the northern part of the country. So this basically is nothing but the shifting of the ITCZ, which we discussed in part 4, and I hope it was clear. If it was not, kindly leave down a comment and I would get back to it. Second point is peninsular India moderating influence of sea. So if you see in winter also, peninsular India had the moderating influence of sea, and it had a moderating type of climate unlike the extreme climate in the north. So in summer also that is the case. Over here, falling air pressure in north, rising temperature and falling air pressure in north. So in the northern part, if you see, the temperature is rising. I'm not going to details that you could see in your book, but the air pressure, is falling or going down because we clearly talked about the linkages between temperature and pressure. So if there is high temperature, there will be low pressure, and if there is high um, pressure, it is kind of linked to low temperature like of conditions. Okay, so then there is a low pressure area from Thar to Patna, and the other reasons, where low pressure plays a role and eventually paving the way for the monsoons, we have discussed in part 3. Then in summer, a very distinct thing that happens in the north is, the a flowing of a wind system known as the loo, which are basically strong, gusty, hot and dry winds, and sometimes they are fatal to people because they are so strong that they bring about uneasiness, lot of dryness, and lead to sickness. Then there are also dust storms which bring about light rain and cool breeze. Yeah, then basically this is we are talking about the northern part of the continent. Then what happens that the pressure belt actually shifts, and then you can see there are localized thunderstorms or Kal Baishakhi type of thing in West Bengal. So these localized thunderstorms are named differently according to the place. In West Bengal, they're known as Kal Baishakhi, and this kind of marks the onset of pre-monsoon shower that is before the monsoon. This is known as mango showers in Kerala and Karnataka because this shower basically helps in the growth of the mango trees and ripening of mangoes. Then so first we did the winter season, then we did the summer season. Now coming to the advancing monsoon or the rainy season. I'll just briefly go through it because we have discussed this in part 3. So over here, as you know, the low pressure intensifies for several factors. It attracts the trade winds, the southeastern trade winds from the southern hemisphere, which enters the continent as southwest monsoons. And basically, these trade winds are attracted from the warm subtropical areas of the Southern Ocean. And as they blow over warm oceans, they have a lot of moisture and give rise to a lot of rainfall. The maximum amount of rainfall and intensity of rainfall is basically seen in the northeast. And Monsoon Ram is a place which gets the highest amount of rainfall. When I was in school, there was this place called Cherrapunji, also in the Khasi Hills of Meghalaya, which used to get a lot of rainfall. But this, though is more or less static, is also dynamic. It keeps changing. Now it is Monsoon Ram, and I think it will continue for quite some time. It receives a lot of rainfall, in fact, the highest rainfall in the Indian subcontinent. And the western Ghats, the windward side of the western Ghats also receive lot of rainfall. Rajasthan and Gujarat, as you can see, get very less rainfall. In monsoons, we talked about the breaks, which is the wet and dry spell. So it means that if it is a rainy season, it doesn't mean that it rains every single day in every part in a consistent manner. Otherwise, it would have been, very certain and predictable, and we could have taken measures to, control the negative sides of it, or use the positive sides a little bit more than what we are now. But monsoon is erratic and uncertain. It comes with a lot of breaks, which means there are wet and dry spells. Sometimes it can rain a lot, and sometimes there just cannot be any rain. So this is caused basically by the monsoon trough, or the low pressure area that is created. Its movement kind of determines this. So when it is above the plains, it rains a lot. Sometimes it is near the mountains, so the plains do not get enough rainfall, and there is a dry spell. Point number D is the retreating, or the transitional season, or the post monsoonal season. So over here, the movement of sun is back to its normal position towards the south. So obviously the low pressure area of the monsoon trough is weakened and replaced by the regular high pressure system. This basically continues from October to November, and this is known as the periods of transition. At this point, one important concept that you need to remember is the October heat. Why it is called October heat, and it causes about a lot of uneasiness and health problems, because suddenly the temperature is very high and there is high level of humidity, which people find it difficult to accept after such pleasant monsoons. So October heat is a devastating condition. Low pressure shifts from northwestern part to the Bay of Bengal part, and here tropical cyclones happen. So if you little bit refresh your memory, you would know that all the cyclones basically occur mostly during October time, be it the super cyclone, I think, which occurred in October 29th in Odisha, or Fallon, or any other cyclone that occurs in the eastern part of the country is during this October portion, where tropical cyclone like conditions, or when I talked about tropical cyclone, I also told that it is nothing but a low pressure condition. So obviously when there is low pressure, surrounding winds would come to fill up the place, and there is a lot of wind, and so thunderstorm is there, and conditions which might lead to a cyclone. So this tropical cyclone owes its origin from the Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea, and creates havoc sometimes in the eastern part of the country, basically south, east, and eastern part. So this is basically in October, or could be first week of November. Deltas of Krishna, Kaveri, Mahanadi face the consequences. So yes, we are done. So if you see A, we talked about winter, which is from mid-November to February. Quickly, if I have to recap, I'll just say that the conditions are more pronounced in the northern part of the country, and where there is a high pressure thing, but you have to remember about the western disturbances also. Then B is the summer season, which is from March to May. Conditions of low pressure arise, air expands, and how towards the end of it there are thunderstorms, an example of which is Kal Baisakhi, and mango showers in Karnataka, Kerala. Kal Baisakhi, of course, in West Bengal. Then in C, we talked about the rainy season, or the advancing monsoon, where there is seasonal reversal of wind. So that basically starts from June and continues till August or late August and September. D is the retreating monsoon, and this is a very important phenomena, and it is basically the transition period from what is the condition and what will be the condition. In October you have tropical cyclones, that also you need to remember. So basically, one is during the retreating monsoon that you have tropical cyclones, and the second we did was during summer you have the localized thunderstorms and the pre-monsoon showers. I hope this video was useful and you could briefly know about the four seasons, and where there is high pressure, where there is low pressure, where there is northeast trade winds, where there is southeast trade winds, where there are cyclonic disturbances, where there are localized thunderstorms. So yeah, if conceptually there is any doubt, kindly comment in the comment section below and subscribe to my channel for regular updates. Thank you.